Siege of Khartoum game. This is a game in the same system as Battle of Yorktown, which I reviewed a couple of weeks ago, published by the Historical Game Company, and it is very attractive to me to have games that are based on the same game system so that I can learn a new game and play a game on a new topic with a minimum number of unique rules to learn. Here we have a situation in which we are in Egypt in the 19th century, and one player will control forces of besieged Egyptian defenders waiting for British reinforcements that may or may not come, and even if they do, will be very late in the game. And on the other side, we have Mahdi's forces that are trying to take control of things. They're trying to take control of that fort there and that hex specifically. If the player controlling these forces ever take control of those two hexes, they win the game immediately. The Egyptian defender wins by surviving until the end of the last turn, which is the 24th turn. Again, very similar situation as you have in other games in the system, which they tend to favor asymmetrical siege situations, in this case you can see one side has a lot more forces, and actually because of card play, many of these can be brought back in waves and waves of reinforcements after they have been eliminated. They just keep coming. But these the defenders here, although outnumbered, they have a major positional advantage as they are defending behind fortifications that give them a massive advantage in terms of likeliness of repelling attacks. There are also these hexes here, this kind of terrain here, which first is a limiting terrain. The attackers have to stop when they enter. They don't have any intrinsic defensive advantage by sitting there, so they're slowed down, but they don't get an advantage. Also, there are mines in there just waiting to be blown up by certain events that will be played here. So the Mahdi's player entering these hexes will want to move away from it as much as possible. Of course, to be efficient, you're probably gonna try to launch some large attacks there, but that means that a lot of units will be sitting there for at least a while, and as they do so, again, there may be cards that just blow them up. So that's an interesting element there, as there will be tension for the Mahdi's player trying to go past the minefield. And once they do so, bless their hearts, yay, we made it there, then they are still gonna face units that are behind those fortifications. So there's the positional advantage for the Egyptian defender, and there's also the fact that simply they have better stats, they have better numbers there. As for the numbers printed there, the one that you see, the first number, bottom left corner of a counter, is the attack factor. There's a small number on it with a red background, and that is the range, so how far the unit can attack. Then you have the defensive value and the movement value. When a unit is disrupted by game effect, it is flipped on the other side, which only shows the defensive factor, because that is all that a unit can do at that point once they have been disrupted by enemy attacks and or by game effects. Also, the art that indicates the type of troop is extremely important, again because of game effects. They may give a certain kind of troop and not another specific advantages or limitations due to game effects dictated by cards. Also here, first time that I said this in this game system, we have naval units that can move across the White Nile River and or the Blue Nile River. At the beginning of the game, there is only the Egyptians have a naval unit that moves on the river but has good range and can attack twice per turn, so that's pretty powerful. The cards may bring in feluccas for the Madis player, not nearly as powerful. Mainly, I find that their main use is to slow down the river unit and to block the line of sight. If you're trying to defend somebody who is around here, then maybe you place the feluccas there so that the river boat doesn't attack them, but they blow up quickly, but then maybe they come back again. And then we have two groups of British reinforcements, very powerful, but they may never come in, they may come in late. The idea is this: each player has a deck of 10 cards. A card is revealed, drawn, and resolved for each player each turn. So a turn is a side draws and resolve their own card, and the other side draws and resolve their own cards. After they're all gone, which means after 10 turns, because each deck has 10 cards, you reshuffle it and you repeat. The British reinforcement card, of course, is in the Egyptian deck. They're the ones waiting for the British reinforcements. But the first time it is drawn, the reinforcement event is ignored. So it can only take place starting from the second time. So in the best case scenario, turn 11. And even then, you need to roll a die to see if you get one of these two groups of reinforcements. You don't get them both. And then the second time the deck is reshuffled, so the third time you're going through is starting from turn 21. Again, that card may be drawn or may never be drawn a third time because only 24 turns. There is a chance that it's drawn again, and there's a chance that will bring British reinforcements. But again, they may never come. So the general flow of the game is exactly the same as you have in other games. That is, you draw a card from the active player, for the active player, that tells you how many units of that side can move, up to the full movement allowance, restricted by terrain effects, and then how many units of that side may attack. And they don't have to be the same ones. It may be a unit moves and then attacks. Incidentally, if they do so, they can only attack adjacent enemies, or some units move and then the attacking ones are the ones that did not move, in which case, if a unit that is attacking did not move, they can attack up to the full range, so further. And then there will be special effects, unique events described in the special section. The flow of the game, though, there is this plot twist here. The active side gets to move a number of their units. Then the non-active side gets to counterattack, to fire defensively with 3 units. And that can be pretty annoying. Again, you just got there and you get to be shot at before you can do anything, which also makes sense, of course. After the defensive fire, then that is when the active player can resolve their own combat. After that, the disrupted units of the active player that are not adjacent to enemy units can rally. That is, from disrupted, they go back to the regular side. Combat is always the same, whether it is during the main combat phase or as defensive fire. When you're attacking, you declare the attacker and the defender. You can also choose to have another unit support that attack, in which case that results only in a bonus of +1. You don't add together the full combat strength. So these two firing together against that one, it's a total of 3 for that. 2 + 1 for the supporting, plus other possible effects due to terrain and card effects. Roll a die, add the strength plus modifiers. If the result is equal to the defense of the defender or higher than that by 1, then the unit is forced to retreat and by 2 hexes and becomes disrupted. If the modified result is higher than the defense of the defender by 2 or more, then the unit is simply eliminated. And if the modified result was lower than the defense of the defender, then nothing happens. The attack was a miss. So that's the general idea. That's how you play games in this system in general. And then more specific, again, it is the same system. The only extra rules here have to do with naval units, with reinforcements, with moving across the river. A unit of the Madis player can use one of these hexes as a jumping point, so to speak, to cross the river and then reappear on the other side of the river, which again is necessary for them most likely to be able to reach that fort, which, remember, is one of the 2 victory objectives that they're trying to take control of. So Siege of Khartoum is very similar to other games in the same system, which to me is a strength. It also means that this game is not going to change your mind about the game system. If you didn't enjoy before, this is very similar, very strong family resemblance. You're not going to enjoy this one. And the other way around, of course. But to me, that is a strength because I like the system, so yay, finally, like in the good old days, just the opportunity of starting a new game by just breezing through 3-4 pages of rules that I mainly already know, paying attention to those 2-3 paragraphs that are new, and I can play a game. And again, also the small scale, the small scope, again, with not many game pieces, something I can play in under 2 hours. Very attractive to me. I'm becoming more and more enamored with light wargaming, and that's just the way it is these days. So I enjoy this kind of game. I could play it with new players, with people that have never played a war game before. It is also very playable solitaire. You can control both sides at the best of your possibilities because you have enough randomness here due to the cards and the events, and there is no secret information. Those are not hands of cards that you're keeping from your opponent. They're public information, and they just add more uncertainty about who is going to go next and how much they can do and where can they act and what kind of advantages they can get that turn. So it increases, so card play here increases the solitaire ability. It's a word now if it wasn't before. It's solitaire ability of the game. In general, I really like this game, probably of the 3 that I tried in this game. I still like the Yorktown game better, but this is a close second. And only the reason why I don't rank it as the Yorktown game is just one little thing, which is the victory conditions. I like the fact that in the Yorktown game, you had victory conditions that would allow both sides to score an instant victory. And so there was tension for both sides starting from turn 10, 11. Here, the game will have to play for 24 turns, unless, I guess, one side gives up. But we'll have to play for 24 turns unless one side achieves victory early on. But again, there isn't a chance for the other side to achieve victory instantaneously. And that means if you're the Egyptian player, you want to be there for the long run. There isn't any quick opportunity that you can exploit. You only can play defensively. The only thing that you can do is to slow them down for as long as possible. And to me, that reduces the tension if one side, again, is only entirely playing passively that way. And that's the only reason. And also the game is balanced. That means it's a good thing, mind you, but that means that you're unlikely as the Mattis player to win a battle again in turn 10, to win the game in turn 10, in turn 11. If it doesn't play 24 turns, it's gonna play close to that. There's not gonna be an early instant victory, because the minefields, because the fortifications, because the opportunities, even after the Mattis player breaches the walls, the opportunities still defend pretty well within the encampment. The necessity of taking control of those 2 objectives, the strength of the naval unit of the Egyptian player that can really help the defense. So it is good that a game about a siege makes it hard for the attacker to take control of the city. It is good that they have to work hard for it. But again, the fact that only one side has instant victory means that the game will be a long, drawn-out affair, which again feels historical and makes sense. But it also means that the game in the later phases may become a little bit repetitive. 24 turns is a lot. And I like a game of this kind that maybe, resolves the situation in 15, 16 turns, and it's not likely to happen here. That's just the only minus that I have here, but there are a lot of positive factors. Again, first, all the positive elements of the game system, which are to be found here. It's simple, it's intuitive, a lot of uncertainty. Yes, you're rolling, in most cases, you're rolling looking for sixes, but then you have the opportunity that there's a bonus showing up, and now we're going to launch that attack, and maybe we have better chances. Again, it may not be for everybody that you're rolling a lot of attacks, and most of those attacks are going to do absolutely nothing. But again, I grew up looking for, bucket of dice games where you hit on a six. So that is fine for me. And actually gives real value and excitement for that one time where you roll that six and the enemy is retreating. And maybe you play, and you should play with also controls so that they can't retreat and there's a traffic jam there and they're destroyed instead. Otherwise, after they retreated your six, they come back there. So there is value in trying, in waiting for that great moment, finding the breakthrough, and setting up a situation where you can actually exploit it. That's not a problem for me. Actually, that's something that is interesting. And here also, something I haven't seen in other games in the system, you have the interaction between vastly different kinds of units. Again, the naval units and the land units. There's even more asymmetry here than in other games between a small number of really powerful defender and apparently endless arrival of very weak units. That's an interesting flow there, which makes the game, of course, more asymmetrical. So again, with that minor minus, that I think the game would be more exciting if there was an instant victory opportunity for the Egyptian player. It's a fine game, it's a fun game, it's a good implementation on a system that I already liked, and I definitely liked and enjoyed playing this implementation of the system. It's a fun war game, and it's a good one for beginners and for solo players too.